Welcome to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be looking at Ethereum. Let's get into that price action and see what's going on. Okay, so the primary thing we're still looking for is whether we are in fact still within the C wave or whether we've actually started to form an additional structure here where we have something as a more complex move. So we're going to discuss this idea of the C wave first and what needs to actually play out for this to happen. Now, if we are looking at that possibility of the fact that we're looking for this as a C wave, we're talking about a couple of things. So we're looking primarily for this the possibility of this extension, but like I was saying before, this wave 2 has gotten quite big and it becomes less likely. So I'm actually going to remove that from the chart. Now, what we could argue is that within this structure here, we could still have something like this, where this becomes 1, 2, 3, looking for a fourth and then a fifth wave to the downside as an expanding diagonal. And we were talking about that potential of coming up towards this zone of this 1878 as a possible C wave location. Now, we have come up into this area, and what I'm looking out for here is if this is the case. Now, the reason why this is less or low probability count is because of the fact that this would be an expanding diagonal. Though it's not impossible, it is less common than the contracting variation. So what we'd have to be then arguing is that we have a wave 1, 2, 3, this is a fourth, and then looking for a fifth. So if we had to form a bigger three-wave move to the downside, which would have to move lower than this 1685, because this would have to be longer than this third wave, and then what we could argue is that this would be a valid shape. But even then, what we'd need to do is watch this structure after this, because there are still other interpretations of what this can be. But what we'd be looking for within this count would be basically a three-wave move to the downside, looking to actually break through the zone of this 1685. Now, it can just wick through this and then turn around, but what we need to be aware of is that there is that potential. Now, I do have a target box down in this area here, and within this we have the potential of coming down in here. Obviously, there's a swing failure to this low here. There is also weekly and daily naked points of control within this zone. So some interesting areas to keep an eye on if we do move down towards this level would be this 1688, this 1680, the weekly naked point of control is here at the 1674, and the daily naked point of control is here at this 1657. So a move down into this lower yellow box region could be an interesting zone, as we could also swing fail this low over here and actually look to retest these highs and find support come in. So need to keep an eye on that level if we do actually look to continue to break down there. Now, if we are wanting to say that this is banding out, because like I said previously, we need to be careful. We do have this as an AB here. So if we do look to break down in a bigger way, this could actually become 1 and 2. So that would become a valid count if this move starts to break down below the 1559. Now, if we do break down past this zone, we'd have to change the count to this as 1, 2, and then potentially another 1, 2. So how would this actually be possible? So the other way we can potentially look at this move is that we could argue that this move here is a wave 1 and a 3-wave move. This is a wave 2, this is a wave 3, this is a wave 4, and this is a wave 5 as a diagonal pattern. Now, once again, these are low confidence because they can also just be corrective structures. But if we did get a rejection from here and we actually look to break down in a bigger way, what our target for this as a wave 3 would be much lower down here towards the zone of this 1472, which would put us in play for that idea of having a bigger 5-wave structure developed from the top here. Because as we've talked about before, we need to be careful that this is not a B wave high here, and we could actually look to break down in a bigger way. So this is going to be key if we're looking for the possibility of continuation to the upside. Ideally, what we don't want to do is start to form impulsive moves to the downside here, pushing towards the zone of this 1472. Otherwise, that becomes more of a bearish count in this case. Then we'd be looking for that bigger breakdown. Now, the other way we could discuss this move is that we could still be potentially looking for this as a flat correction, where we're actually still looking for this yellow B wave to play out. Now, it is becoming quite choppy and messy within this, but what we were looking for was the potential of actually forming a 5-wave structure up here. Currently, we don't have a good clear move, so we're still looking for that potential to come up here towards this 2025 to this 2123 area. Now, the 1-to-1, which is an area which we talk about as a particularly interesting zone, is actually here towards the zone of this 1967. So this would be also an interesting area if we are looking for a truncation. So if we were talking about that possibility of the flat, the way that I'd be looking at it currently is two ways. So we can either look at it as this move is forming as a, once again, as a diagonal, and we're talking about this, basically looking at this as a wave 1, this is a 2, this is a 3 wave, a third wave up into these highs. It wasn't allowed to cross this 1880, it didn't do so, and now we're looking for a 3 wave move to the downside, not crossing this 1775. So an interesting area that I'd be keeping an eye on would be this trend line, which would be here towards this 1807 region. This could be quite an interesting zone if we do look to actually push down here. And well, the key thing here is what we want to see is a 3-wave move. So at the moment we do have this move which looks like it has potential to actually be a 5-wave structure, but it needs an additional 2 waves for that to play out. So we'll discuss that in a second. But if we do just form this as a 3-wave move and this reverses and takes this high, that would, you know, remove any potential that this is a impulse to the downside, which would break some of the other counts. But what we'd be looking for here is the potential to actually see a continuation up here. And what we'd be looking for is, if this is the case, and we're going to say that we come back into this trend line, wave 5 would not be allowed to cross this 1917 area. So this would be quite an interesting zone. Obviously within this we can see this would be kind of in, it wouldn't really be either this 0.618 or this 1-to-1, which is a common zone for a truncation in the C wave. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. There is still the other count, which we're going to go over in a second. But if we do get a 3-wave move up here with the 5th wave that doesn't actually break this 1917, what we need to be careful of is that this could actually then mean that we have a completed C wave here, and then we still break to the downside from there. If that were the case, it would actually potentially push this 1-to-1 much lower here. So if I come right to invalidation there, 1-to-1 would actually then be looking for a move down towards a 1619 if this is the case. So this is just something to keep an eye on here. If we do start to move up here in this way, it could actually be you know, that diagonal pattern for that C wave. So the other way we were talking about this was actually looking at this move as a 1 and a 2, and then we're talking about this potentially looking to break out of this area. So the problem that we have here is we don't have good structure. We were looking at the possibility of another 1-2 here, and then looking for this as a 3rd wave, but we never reached that target. So this could, we didn't even form an additional 4th and a 5th within here. So this becomes less likely. Well, this is not the count in yellow here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and remove that possibility now. Now, what it is still possible here is that we could still actually be within this wave 2, and this wave 2 could be playing out as a flat correction. So from further back here, look at this as A, B, and then what we want to see is a 5-wave move here. So typically speaking, what we'd be looking for is a move down, because expanding flats are more common than the running flat. We would be looking potentially for a move down here towards this 1778 to this 1749, and we would actually want to take this A wave low. This would tie into coming back down into some of these lower levels, and what we do have down here at this 1768 is a naked point of control. Breaking down past here in a bigger 5-wave structure could tie into the idea of this being a flat correction. Now once again, we cannot lose the 1740 if we want to argue that this is looking to actually form a bullish structure here. We need to be careful of this if we are looking for that bullish potential of forming a 5-wave move to the upside from this point. So because of that, you know, we do have this potential. This could still be a flat, and in fact we could even see this be a running flat if it only breaks down to the 1795. That could be quite an interesting level to keep an eye on. If we do get a move down there and then we break back to the upside taking this high, that would confirm that this has been a running flat, because if we have a 5-wave move down like this and we move back above these highs, it can only be that this is either not a 5-wave move, or alternatively that this is a flat. Okay, so now within this we also have that possibility that we could actually see something more like this, where this whole move is rather being a bigger complex correction here. So what I'm looking out for here is that this could be W, this X, this Y, and then we're looking for this as another X wave. So if we want to argue that this is just a corrective move up, what we could say, we were talking about actually a triangle here. Now this is actually invalidated because we did move up too high. We're looking for this C wave to potentially look to complete below this A wave high here, and it didn't. It moved up higher, so this is no longer viable. But what is still possible is that this corrective move is just not completed here, and what this could have been is just W, an X, and a Y. So we're talking about this as looking at this potential target for this towards the zone of this 1879. So because of the fact that we have, potentially a three-wave structure here, this could actually be a completed X wave here. So we have to give it a bit of space and see. But if we were going to treat this as just a W, this is an X and this is a Y, technically speaking, it's come up high enough. Now, there is always a potential that we could actually still see continuation where this is possibly not completed, where what we could actually have within this is, we could have this as an A wave, this is a B wave, and we still see that C wave to the upside. So we're going to have to just be aware that there is still a potential to push up one more time here, as long as we hold this 1770. If we hold the 1770, what we could see is a move back into this top yellow box area here, which does have a daily and weekly naked point of control, as well as that potential to actually swing fail this high here at this 1887. So that would be quite an interesting area if we do move up into that zone. What we do have is some levels in there, and I'm just going to turn these on. So we have a daily naked point of control, which is basically in line with this high still. It's just a little bit above it. We never actually reached it. We do also have this higher one here towards this 1909, a weekly one at this 1899, and then that potential of a swing fail into this high. So this is why I'm keeping an eye on this area here. If price had to find support here and then come back into this zone and get rejection, this could be potentially an area that could be quite an interesting zone to look to get into a position, obviously provided that the reaction was good and risk management was used. Now, if we are looking at this as potentially looking to break down now, what we need to be aware of is this move could actually start to break down. So we're talking about this possibility of this flat correction. Now, what we would be looking for here is rather something like this, where we actually look for this move to play out in a 5-wave sequence. Now, it would look like internally here we still have another drop. If we were treating this as 1, 2, 3, 4, we could argue that this 5th wave has completed here, but it didn't actually cross this low. So it's possible this wave 3 could actually be already done, and we're still looking for this 4th wave here, an additional 5th. However, internally here, it would make a lot more sense if we just see a break of this low. That would suffice. But what we'd be looking for, if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're looking for this as a 5th wave, the typical 5th wave area would actually look for this 1808 to this 1801. And then from there, what we'd then be looking for is basically confirmation of additional 4th and a 5th. Now, what I would want to see here is basically this move to play out like this. So if we do drop down one more time here, looking for this 3rd, then we'd be looking for a 4th wave. Now, 4th wave target, we wouldn't really want to cross back above this 1831. Breaking back above 1831 dramatically reduces the possibility of continuation here. And at that point, all we would have is a 3-wave move. So what we would ideally want to see is if this is a 1, 2, this becomes 3, 4. We'd look for this 5th wave down to this 1801 to this 1794. Now, if we do break down to this zone, I would be watching this previous 4th wave area again, looking for that potential of an additional 3-wave move up and then a move to the downside. Now, given the current day that we've had here, the range of this current day, we do have a point of control which is sitting towards this zone of this 1827. So this could actually be an interesting zone as a potential 4th wave high if we do move back up into this zone here. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. If we do break down, move back up for this 4th, potentially that would also line up with this level here. So that could be quite an interesting level for that possible 5th wave, additional 4th and a 5th. Now, if we do get just a single 5-wave move to the downside like this blue one that we have here, this could tie into that idea of that flat, in which case we'd look to actually confirm this by taking the high. However, if we do form this as a 5-wave move, what we need to be cautious of is the idea that within this move, we could actually have this as a wave 1 and then fail to actually break back above this zone of this 1852. Now, this 1852 will be a 786. If this is a corrective move up and we're going to see continuation in an impulse, typically speaking, we'll see a 3-wave move up between this 1826 and this 1852. If we do move back up here and get a sustained break above this level, this becomes more likely we're going to see continuation to the upside and see that higher target come in. So this is looking for that idea of a direct breakdown. So what we'd be looking for here is basically all of this to form a wave 1. This is a 2. Forming a bigger 3rd, 4th, and a 5th to the downside, which could eventually look to actually push us down towards this lower region here of this 1685 to this 1665 area. Now I do have this target box down here which has that potential of that swing failure of this low, so this would be quite an interesting zone if we do actually break down into this low. So this target box is between the 1687 to the 1657 area. That could also tie in with the idea of coming back into this trend line that we've been talking about for a while here, which is currently sitting towards this 1635 directly below us. So obviously as time plays out, this trend line moves up, so going to be keeping an eye on those levels. So before we wrap up the video, I just want to talk about one other thing here, looking at the CPR here. Now on the weekly, we can see that we are still above the central lines here. So we did move up towards this, past this S1 line here, and we actually have come back down into this region. What I want to see is if we do actually start to find support on this line here, this could actually indicate that we could see another move to the upside, in which case that would tie in with coming back into this channel and looking for that potential of continuation to the upside here. The S2 line is actually sitting here towards this zone of this 1883, and the S3 line is actually higher up here towards this zone of this 1919. So this could be quite an interesting level. If we do manage to find support here towards this 1800 area, we could actually see a reversal to the upside and either coming back into this channel and retesting this trend and some of these higher levels that we have here in this target box, or alternatively what we could actually see here is a breakdown below this, a retest of the underside, and then we could actually see this move starting to break down and looking to challenge some of these lower lines here towards this 1768, this 1731, and this 1692. That could be quite interesting zones to keep an eye on as this move progresses. Now I'm going to actually turn this onto the monthly so we can just have a look at those as well. We can see here that we are sitting between the central lines here, the blue ones at the top, and this lower R1 line. So the fact we haven't actually interacted with this, this could potentially mean that we are going to see this at some point. It doesn't have to happen, but this is what I'm just looking out for, that even if we did move up here one more time and come back into this yellow box area, this would actually be a retest of the underside of these lines, which could actually mean that if we do reject, we could see a move down towards this R1 line at that point, or alternatively one of these lower lines. So the R2 is actually sitting at this 1546, and the R3 line is sitting down here towards this 1329. So that would tie into that much bigger corrective move, or actually much bigger breakdown rather. So we need to keep an eye on these levels and see how that interaction actually plays out. As well as that, I just want to go over the Ichimoku. So we were talking about the potential of actually coming back into this cloud, and we did actually move into here. I was actually looking for a touch of this baseline, but we didn't quite get it. So that is possible that within the structure this could actually just look to break down from this point, though really we need to keep in mind that there are other factors here as well, and we could just see this move back down here, start finding support, and actually look to move back into this cloud. Now we can see that the 4 hourly, we are currently inside it, and one more move to the downside would actually bring us into the bottom edge of this cloud, which could offer us support at this 1809. So this is why I'm looking out for that potential to still see another leg to the upside, which would tie in with actually coming into this top end of this Ichimoku cloud, and then possibly even pushing us back into the 8-hour cloud here. So that would be something I'm looking out for in the shorter term here. On the daily, we are currently sitting within the daily cloud. We did actually get a rejection off the top end of this cloud. So what I would be looking out for here is if we do break down, we could look to actually find support lower down in this target box area, which would tie into that idea of actually swing failing this low here, looking to retest some of these levels, and then looking for, the possibility of a reversal from that point. So I will be keeping an eye on this as we do move down. We do have some confluence in this lower range here, but yeah, we'll just have to see how the moves actually play out. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.